I would first like to thank the organizers for enabling this marvelous meeting. And second, I would like to present our research in which we try to see the connection between long and short-range subtle field and water. This research has been performed by Peter Theitz from our institute Bion and Bernhard Poldner from Innsbruck and me. There are two phenomena that ordinary science banishes from its strongly defended and outmoded circle. They are the so-called strange properties of water. I mean, they are not really strange, but they are perceived as strange or even non-existent by the ordinary science. And then there is the so-called subtle field that Glenn spoke about, and I think that it is not necessary for me to go deeply into this, because we already have heard about that. It is not necessary that it is about the same entity in all cases, but for the purpose of this new scientific breakthrough that we still are waiting for, this is not very important. In principle, these two phenomena are independent, yet they can be tightly connected, as it is revealed through our experiment and the ones from other groups. And there is a strong indication that these two phenomena can be also intertwined. This means that some unusual water phenomena may base on waters or whatever subtle field, and that maybe some subtle field phenomena need water for their expression. In the last 2 years, we made an extended research into the microscopic structure of the mineral remnants of evaporated water droplets. So this is the same, basically the same method that my predecessor spoke about, so I will not go deeply into this. This is called droplet evaporation method, DEM. And in this series of experiments, we try to see if we can trace also subtle field effects. And therefore, we performed 2 different series of experiments involving the effects on water and monitored via DEM. Long-range subtle field influences from bioenergy emanating from humans, and the short-range ones that emanate from the surface of glass beads, Neptune beads, or even glass slides. We made several research hypotheses that we tested through these experiments, and one, of course, of them is general. The basic hypothesis is that special electromagnetic order of water described by Emilio del Giudice and covered by coherent domains, or exclusion zone described by Professor Pollack and other researchers, are mutually connected with a subtle field domain. So that subtle field effects can therefore, through this special water order, that can be demonstrated through structural changes of water, here researched and unveiled by DEM, so droplet evaporation method, as I told, very, very beautifully described by my predecessor. Now, based on this general hypothesis, we made several further hypotheses. One, that long-range fields could change coherent domains or similar dynamic structures of water, and that this change can influence the structuring of residues during droplet evaporation. To this is connected hypothesis 1A, that according to many research reports, even thoughts can influence a subtle field. Then we can have this connection, causal connection, the intention of our mind can influence a subtle field even remote, of the water, and this can influence the structuring of residues during droplet evaporation. Hypothesis 2 was that short-range order fields, like the field of exclusion zones. Yesterday, Professor Pollack told that exclusion zones and other ordered structure do not radiate or emit energy, that energy is somewhat locked in this ordered structure. And I would say so, but we think or assume that there is subtle field component. It was today explained in some detail by Glenn Ryan about this. That we think that so easy has this subtle field domain, and that can change its coherent domains, and thereby again restructuring evaporation pattern of water. The connection to this is hypothesis, connected to this is hypothesis 2a. It stems from homeopathic practice that shaking of water can make strong or some other impact on water. And there is also very interesting hypothesis 3, and it is connected to Vittorio Elias' work with iteratively naphionate water. And this is that distilled water, as we know, should leave no trace. And therefore, there should be no image, droplet image. So that any possible image stemming from distilled water exposed to a special field could stem from, let's say, a new condensed form of water itself. Maybe this is a new matter field condensed state. And this is represented here. So this stands for droplet evaporation picture or image of distilled water, so nothing is seen, and this for water exposed to naphthalene. But let's see this a little further. Now, we used 4 different kinds of waters that were suitable for different experiments. Of course, distilled water was the only one suitable for testing the hypothesis 3. Then mostly we use very well-known spring water with relatively low totally dissolved solids, TDS, spring water, very well studied. Then in one experiment, tap water from Ljubljana, our town, and mineral water with high TDS, so this high dissolved matter, this is the one, Now this is the research scheme, so we tried to demonstrate the subtle fields through DM, and we tested these basically 2 hypotheses. One that relates to long-range human biofield, and the second to short-range surface field from glass beads and nepheon, and we use spring water here, tap water, and spring water for intention experiments, and in one case mineral water. And of course, with testing hypothesis 3, we used only distilled water. And to see the effect of short-range field, we used mostly spring water through incubation, so that everything was at peace still, and through shaking. And we tested different times of this exposure and different number of beads. Now this is just a scheme of DM procedure, but I think that this was covered by Professor Kriplin, so I think that I can proceed. This is just now an image analysis. We actually analyzed these images, DM images, through 2 specially developed computer programs. One does a frequency distribution analysis of all interpixel distances, And another was made by Bernhard Pollner, and this is a dimmer package, Doppler pressure meta-analysis for R, and yeah, we are still developing this. Okay. In some cases, or even in many cases, no program or statistical evaluation was needed because the difference between the groups, I mean control group or other groups, and were so obvious, as you will see. Range field experiments, we used, so 5 healers were involved, 4 with direct irradiation, 1 with remote irradiation from 60 kilometers of distance, and into spring water. In one case, tap water was used. In all these experiments, we used also control water that was of the same origin, so from the same flask, for instance, and placed in a separate room. 2 types of experiments were close influence and intentional. So experiments with mind intention. Here you see one such experiments with spring water, and there are many students of our Academy for Healers first years, and only one of them was regular Reiki practitioner, this student number 4 that we call the Healer 1 here. And you can well see that the other students did not influence water very much. They tried to influence it through hands, in sitz position or from above. It was left to them how to do it. But mostly, as you see, these images are similar to the control water that was not exposed to any such radiation, but thesis it was completely different, and as it is seen here, magnified. So really I think that no computer program is needed here to see that bioenergy field can influence. And what is important is that the other students did not influence this water pattern very much. This means that temperature of hands or any procedure by hands by itself does not do this, so that we can safely assume that it is really about the energy field of the practitioner. Now, this is another similar experiment, spiritual hero number 2, that she tried to influence the water. This is the control water, so in a beaker in another room, and the tested water, so irradiated, and we see the frequency distribution analysis from these images, of course, much more images than just presented here. And this difference was also statistically significant. Then the intentional experiments. This is healer number 3. This is the mineral water with high totally dissolved substance, and this is it. So ordinary mineral water from Croatia, and the healer was told to narrow this ring, to form the ring and narrow it, and you can see that he succeeded to do this. I think that it was even not this in one experiment, but in 2, and I think that the pictures speak for themselves, and you see that, so PCA analysis shows this is a group of dots for control water, and this for the tested or irradiated water, and you can see that this program totally dissociated these 2 groups. Now another experiment with another healer, the same type of experiment, so she was told to narrow this ring, and she succeeded not so well as the first healer, but still we see the frequency distribution analysis that at least in this region, at these distances, showed a statistically significant difference. Now this was the experiment performed by intentional, tried to see the effect of intention through distance, 60 kilometers of distance, so that this healer knew the situation, knew the beaker on which she should have concentrated upon, and of course there was also control beaker with the same water from the same flask in another room, and this is the control water, pictures from the control water, and the pictures you see this very solid pattern of the tested soap irradiated from 60 kilometers, and of course we think that this is really the influence of intention. Now this is a kindergarten experiment. This is Ljubljana tap water from our town, and this is the source of the water distribution system. So the water at the source, there are these images, and this stands for ordinary pictures of our tap water, and you can see how what we assume was performed by children in the kindergarten. They completely changed these images, the formation of droplets. And we did not find anything like this in other cases of tap water. It's just in kindergarten. Now let's proceed to short-range field experiments. We tested 3 hypotheses that I already explained, so I will not go into this again. We exposed water to 3 different surfaces, to glass beads, Nephion beads, and to glass surface of the microscope slides. I mean, this is, of course, exposed any dop if we want to microscope it, dark microscopy. Now, but some of them were cleaned, or mostly they were cleaned, some of them were uncleaned, only used as they were bought. And we tested different times, incubation or shaking, and different number of beads. Now you can see the first experiment, though these were 10 Nephion beads incubated in 1 milliliter of distilled water and only incubated, so no shaking. And you can see again, sorry, this is a picture of image of a distilled water. So actually there is no trace of any drop edge and any real structures. Maybe some fills or some dust particles, but nothing else. And look what happens after 5 minutes of exposure of this water to Nephion beads. So we can see certain structures appeared, and you must know that these beads were cleaned by 1 molar hydrochloric acid and rinsed twice with distilled water. So I would exclude any filth or dirtiness from these beads. Now after 30 minutes and after 20 hours, you can clearly discern the edge of the drop here where there should be nothing. So by this we can see that perhaps really some new state of water, energy water, some solidified or condensed form of water is formed here. that as yet evades physicists to explain. But it is in harmony what Vittorio Elia told us yesterday and 1 year ago on this conference. Now again, this is only magnified. You see how these pictures, images are evolved, or this water evolved during time. Now again, experiments with shaking. So this water was shaken with the beads inside, and the T0 is before experiment, then after 2 hours, another 4 hours of shaking, and again control nepheon and glass beads, 10 beads for each in 1 milliliter of water. And we see here, this was distilled water. Some remnants here were possibly from plastic walls, but this is 100 times magnification, and in reality this would be a very, very, very small particles, absolutely not significant. This is water. Now what Naphion did was something like this. So again, certain structures or some light appear here, so there should be some deflection of normal light in this dark microscopy. Again, evidence of something solid here, because all this picture are made after evaporation, so no liquid water is here. And then similar pictures with glass beads. So we see there is no huge difference between nepheon and glass beads. This is for 2 hours, for 4 hours. Now let's say, what happens when we use spring water with relatively low TDS? It is 137 ppm. We see that, oh sorry, if we shake this, this control water changes, so the pattern is changed after shaking. But let's see what Naphion does. It is striking, I think, because where there should be something, there is nothing. We see the totally destroyed structure. So, where we had this distilled water, something originated here, where there otherwise normally should be nothing. Now, this images here, everything vanished. We have only small traces, but no such picture with the edge. Now let's look what glass beads did in this experiment. We see this is for control, time zero, so normal, ordinary water. Here, even at the beginning, you know, structure is destroyed, even at the beginning, so immediately. You see that after 2 hours, we see a very, very changed structure, and also after 4 hours, but it is different. Now, this is a comparison between distilled water and spring water, the same experiments, but we already had this, so the striking difference. Look, distilled water pictures from Naphion and these spring water pictures. Okay. This is only magnified, and there is an idea actually, this is the spring water with glass beads, that these remnants and these ones here really represent these totally dissolved solids of this spring water, while these patterns that are very reminiscent of our eye represent something completely different. So not solids, but again this changed state of water, or solidified water at room temperature. Okay, this is experiment with glass beads shaking. We have already seen this, but now we stopped shaking, and what happens after 2 hours? The images are different than before, and then we withdraw these glass beads from the beaker, and let's see what happens. So after this drops removal, we have completely different pictures, but very repeatable drop images. And this is after 24 hours after glass beads removal. So we see that is certain process going on in this very interesting. There is some memory, but also transformation, you know, of structures in water. Okay, how much time do I have? 1 minute, okay. So plenty of time, no problem. Okay, I'll skip this. These are interesting images when you see the drops on the clean slide of these Parnafium beads in 1 milliliter spring water. So they are only changed, but completely different if the slides were unclean. So this is a very important effect of slide by itself. These are pictures of the same kind, very interesting, but I have no time to go deeply into this. Now, these are how many Nafion beads were used, you know, in incubation. You see that even 5 Nafion beads did the work of total destruction of this structure of spring water. And they are different from 6, 8, or 10 beads, you know, in 1 milliliter. So even the number of Nafion beads did certain work. Now this you see, this is incubation of only 1 Nafion bead. So 1 Nafion bead, a little modified structure of spring water, and after shaking, you see, and this all of this color change. You see, this is bluish. This one blue ring, but otherwise it is brown, so very strange. Now let's conclude this. So we can say that general hypothesis that subtle field and dynamic water structure are intertwined, so strongly supported, that long-range field influences water structure, that thought can modify subtle field, and it can then modify water structures, and it can be reproduced. Then the short-range order fields can change water structures, and different fields from different materials have different effects. They can even destroy standard structures. There is a threshold of influence too, of glass beads and of time. Shaking modifies water structure, it enhances surface field effects, and it can lower the threshold of influence. Hypothesis 3, it is a further indication of a new state of energy matter, so a form of solidified water at room temperature. Of course, we also confirmed the existence of subtle field here. The possibility of mental influencing water from a distance and mentally influencing the pattern. Then that short-range field can influence coherent domains of water and the formation of remnants at evaporation. The possibility to imprint subtle fields, like those from volunteers or children, into water, either intentionally or unintentionally. A further confirmation of water memory demonstrated through all these experiments, because there is time from doing some testing, some irradiation, and actual evaporation, and it was demonstrated with our glass bead experiments after removal. And as revealed by this shaking experiment, the memory is not necessarily static, but can have its own evolution. It is dynamic, so that water structure can have their own trajectories in time. So, thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Igor, and I think we have time for very few short questions.
Thank you for really beautiful results. Question, have you ever thought of scraping the material and doing further analysis, for example, spectrometry, or to figure out exactly what you have on your slides?
Yes, of course, but these are somewhat preliminary experiments through which we have seen the differences, and I agree, further experiments with other devices should be done then, yes. Can you get a mic?
Very interesting results, but I would be worried about one thing. It's the shaking. If you shake distilled water, it will combine with the CO2 of the air and produce carbonic acid. And because of the low partial pressure of CO2, it will convert to carbonates. And those carbonates will obviously interact chemically with calcium, magnesium, and other minerals. So most of what you see there could be an effect of this chemical reaction.
Well, we did a control experiment, and there was no picture. So that you spoke about the distilled water, yeah?
All waters will
All waters.
Incorporate
Yes.
CO2 and make this reaction.
Okay. This could explain certain things, but otherwise we also performed experiments only with incubation, so without shaking. But you're right, in our future experiments we should take care of this. Thank you.
Thank you for your interesting presentation. Just a little consideration and after a question. Sorry, can you hear me? Yes. Sorry. I agree with the doubt that exposed the other guy, and maybe you should pay also attention in the shaking of the beads if you use magnetic shaker when you make it 500 rounds per second, because the magnetic field can affect strongly the starter water, also without any beads inside. After that, I'm only perplexed about the fact that you have separated a certain hypothesis. In the sense, I think that all the hypotheses that you considered anyway can be reconduced to the long-range field hypothesis, in the sense that anyway, also the solid aggregates that Professor Ilya showed yesterday, above all after the great work of Tamar Inon, can be reconduced to the electrodynamic correlation of coherence domain, and they are indeed long-range forces, because the molecular classical interaction range is short. It is mean that is few angstroms or tens of angstroms. So, the TOPS, I'm finishing. And the TOPS also is a long correlation, and it's pertain. Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Sorry.
Good. Look, we took account, so we took care about this magnetic field, so that this remains some. We did this with some distance,
Yeah.
So that they were shaken remotely from this magnetic field. But you're right, there could be some other influences. This is one thing, and the second. You are right in purely physical term. What I call here short or long range is more long range is now in kilometers, not long range in quantum physics, where I know, this is long range, even this is few microns and so on.
You can correlate it
yes.
to space when you get
Yes, you are right, but I use this word in a different context. Okay.
Igor, thank you very much. Very impressive and conclusive presentation. I would like only to compare glass beds and Naphion beds action on spring water. Did you take into consideration that Naphion is a very strong ion exchanger, and it should change chemical composition of spring water for sure.
Yes, but okay.
So Naphion is ion exchanger, what I want to stress,
Yeah.
and that many people who use Naphion as a very strong, easy water former do not take into consideration that it changes drastically the composition of water if it contains salts.
Okay, yes. But it still does not explain these formations when we have when these Naphion beads were cleaned and with distilled water. Yeah, okay. Yes. Okay. Yeah. We'll take this into consideration. Okay.
We have a question there.
Quick question.
Last question.
Did you control for or see any correlation between the body temperature of the students when they were putting their hands on the plates?
No, we did not check their body temperature, but there was some time, from doing this irradiation and from doing the evaporation methods. So that I would assume that all these temperature effects are different temperature, this would vanish, and the water would assume temperature of its surroundings.
Last question.
Thank you very much for the wonderful presentation. There's so many hypotheses in a wide area that you try to cover. I think the whole conference, this is a platform for the whole conference to go. What I felt, when you do the long distance experiment, you need one more control. You need the control water at 60 kilometers again, because this control water will change.
Well, you're right.
Water again,
But there is some methodological problem, that after our experiences, this water, control water, at place of this healer, would be changed through traveling, also. I mean, this is, yes.
Yes, I know. Therefore, you need it again as a control. And another thing, when you have so many questions to answer, you need lots of data. And I'm so happy to see principal compound analysis and multivariate analysis at your results. Just expand it as much as possible. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.